How is it rocking, Dwayne Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dwayne Nation and the brand that is Dwayne Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dwayne Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo once again, and of course, our guest star for the NFC prediction videos. It is my dad, Victor Paez, Zucru himself.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on. We have knocked out 2 videos so far. We knocked out the NFC East and the NFC North, and we got 2 more to go, and then we got a little to discuss after that. But we're going to dive right into the action because we're on fire right now in our podcast recording. So let's jump to San Francisco. Obviously, they made it to the Super Bowl last year. Not much has changed. A little drama has been involved with, Ayuk and Debo maybe getting moved. Another interesting storyline, of course, McCaffrey got an extension where he's going to be paid $19 million a year, which is like well ahead of the rest of the running backs in the NFL. But we'll see if this team has a Super Bowl hangover of sorts. But we'll dive right into the team. Some of their games are obviously already decided because we've had some episodes with other teams. But I'll discuss some of this. So we got the Niners in week 1. They play against the Jets. Monday Night Football. We get to see Aaron Rodgers hopefully play a full game of football. Obviously, we talked about this when we talked about the Jets, but the guy that tackled Aaron Rodgers that tore his Achilles, that guy is on the Niners. A weird, unfortunate coincidence. Why did they give Aaron Rodgers a really great pass defense to play against in the first week? Blows my mind a little, but it's still going to be a good game. Hopefully no injuries. But we're in Levi. We have the 49ers winning that game. Then we have the Niners playing the Vikings. They also win that game on the road, though, this time. And then they get their first division matchup. They play in Los Angeles to play against the Rams. Genoa, who's winning it?
I'm going to go ahead and say the Rams, Justin. I feel like the 49ers are going to be on and off all year, and we've kind of picked against the Rams this year, this prediction just a little bit. So I like the Rams to kind of just Matt Stafford just dot them up.
I think it's going to be a very close game. He's right. It's going to be close. I'm going to pick San Francisco, but it could switch. I pick San Francisco. It's going to be by probably 6 points. It won't be more than a touchdown, I don't think.
All right, I have the Rams at home, the home victory for them, even though San Francisco is not too far away from there. So, but I have the Rams winning that division matchup. Then we have the Niners winning against the Patriots at home, which is a pretty easy call. And then we have an interesting one, Week 5. Kyler goes into San Francisco to play Brock Purdy. But before I ask you who you think's going to win, I'm going to play this or that again. In fantasy terms, we got Brock Purdy in fantasy or Kyler Murray, Dad. Who do you think's going to win? Or who would you pick? I'm sorry, in fantasy this year.
Man, I'm going to go with Purdy. Something about Kyler Murray, I don't think he's going to stay healthy. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want anybody to get injured, but it's going to be Purdy, I think.
Yeah, I agree, Purdy. I feel like if they can get all those, weapons back together, there's no drama, there's no problems in the locker room. I think they can be able to connect as well as they did last season.
Wow, to be honest, that kind of surprised me. I would go Kyler, almost solely due to that rushing upside he brings. Mm-hmm. And he finally he's got Marvin Harrison to work with and Trey McBride. I feel like it's a good setup for him. So I have Kyler, you guys have Purdy, but I think that's an interesting topic of discussion. But moving past that, Dad, who's winning the game of Niners hosting Arizona?
I'm going with San Francisco. It's going to be too much of McCaffrey. I think it's going to be more of a running game on this one.
Yeah, I definitely think McCaffrey just pretty much goes crazy on the Cardinals.
All right, I agree. We got San Francisco. But then they go into Seattle, face off against the Geno Smith-led Seahawks. Geno, who's winning it?
I'm going to go with the 49ers on this one. I feel like Geno Smith has not been able to take down the 49ers as long as he's been there in Seattle. And pretty much for the past 5 years, it's been tough to beat the 49ers if you're Seattle. So give me the 49ers.
I'm agreeing. It's going to be 49ers, another McCaffrey game. It's going to be all over the place, but I don't think Seattle scores more than 14 points.
Wow. Okay, even at home. All right, but I mean, I have the Niners as well. Okay, and then we move to Week 7, a Super Bowl rematch. We have the Chiefs pulling out a victory on the road against San Francisco. But then they come back in Week 8. They host the Cowboys. We talked about that in the NFC East episode. We have the Niners winning that game. Then they go into the bye, and they jump out and they face against the Buccaneers on the road. But right before we do it, I want to do a this or that. I'm going to continue to throw in some of them when I see is a good debate. But, you start us off here. I want to ask you, Mike Evans or Brandon Ayuk?
It's obviously Mike Evans. I feel like with Ayuk, I'm just not sure on how it's going to go down in that locker room. I feel like there's just a lot of issues. It's going to cause some separation there. Mike Evans is a stud. He's consistent. Nothing's really changed, I guess, except the offensive coordinator in Tampa. So give me Mike Evans.
I agree. I think it's going to be Mike Evans, another 1,000-yard. It might be his last year in Tampa Bay. We don't know. I think it is, but I think it's going to be Mike Evans.
Okay. All right. I'd probably go Evans, but just one little hypothetical. Just say we're in July or even early August, and Debo gets dealt, and Brandon Ayuk gets paid. What are we thinking about that now?
Then that changes things. I feel like Ayuk is the clear cut. They did draft Ricky Pearsall, who can fit right in to be their number 2. With Kyle Shanahan, he's always able to develop talent. They even brought back, Juwan Jennings, the guy that should have won Super Bowl MVP. So maybe if that were to happen, Ayuk could have a probably better season than he had this past year.
Yeah, I think Ayuk would have a better season. I still think it's Mike Evans just because they're going to put the top cornerback on Ayuk, their top defensive players. So
Sure.
I'll go with Mike Evans.
All right. Well, I'll stick with you, Dad. Who do you think's winning the game? San Francisco in Tampa Bay.
I'm going San Francisco. It's just too much run power, too many receiver. I mean, and the defense is probably better than Tampa Bay right now, so I would go San Francisco.
Yeah, Genoa.
I'm gonna go with San Francisco. I think this is the start of Baker Mayfield kind of declining little by little. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go San Francisco to win that game. Then we have the Niners hosting the Seahawks. I'm gonna assume that we all have the Niners winning that game at home. Yeah, cool with that. So we have that there. But then we have the Niners dropping 2 games, one of which is to Green Bay and the other is Buffalo. 2 tough road games. So that makes sense. And then they host the Bears, which we have them winning that game. Then they have a Thursday night football game against their division rival Rams, but it's at home. The Rams got the better of them in their first matchup this year. Who gets the better of each other in this one, Dad?
I picked them away, playing away. I'm going to pick them at home. I just think it's just too many powers there on the running back and the receivers, and they're going to win it. If y'all picked them for losing when they're away, they're going to win at home. They got to win at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so we're in agreement there. Niners get that one. Then they play against the Dolphins in Week 16. Mike McDaniel gets to play his former team, but he loses to his former team. And then we have the rematch of the NFC Championship, which we talked about in our last episode. We have the Niners winning that game at home over the Lions. And then they end their season in Arizona. Right now we have the Niners at 12-4. What do we have? What do you have as your prediction here, Jano?
I'm gonna go with the Cardinals here.
Wow.
I think they're gonna win this one. I think the 49ers, maybe their record is looking pretty good at this point. Maybe they don't play the starters, so give me the Cardinals.
I agree. I think they have nothing to lose, and they will probably sit some of the starters. And Carolina Cardinals are going to take this one. I think not by much, but it'll be.
I'm going to follow that sentiment that you said, that they might be just sitting their starters this week, and the Cardinals will get a freebie. So that ends their season at 12-5, which will probably win them the division unless the Rams or Cardinals here can go on an undefeated streak, but we will see. We're going to jump to the Rams. They are in their first game. We have them losing to the Lions on Sunday Night Football to start the season. But they have to stay on the road, and they go into Arizona, who we just had beating the Niners. Do they beat the Rams at home, Dad?
No, it's going to be the Rams. The Rams will take this one.
Okay.
It'll be a run game for the Rams on this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams on this one.
I'm going to go with the Rams as well. So we have Rams across the board. And then the Rams, they host the Niners. We have them winning that game. And then also winning a road game in Chicago before coming back home and losing to the Packers. And then heading into their bye week. So they're 3-2 before their bye week. And they come out of their bye week. We have them beating the Raiders at home, beating the Vikings at home. But then they go into Seattle to face off against Geno Smith, Ken Walker, DK Metcalf and company. A division matchup, Genoa. Who wins it?
I like the Rams in this one. I just feel like Stafford, he can have a comfortable game in Seattle. He's never really struggled in there. So definitely give me the Rams there.
I agree. I think it's good. It's going to be a close game because you can go either way on this one. I think it's going to be just too much Kerryon Williams if he's still healthy, but it's going to be a run game again for the Rams.
All right. I got Rams as well. Then we have the Rams hosting the Dolphins and winning that game on Monday night. They also win a Sunday game against the Patriots on the road, but they lose at home to the Philadelphia Eagles before going back on the road and facing the New Orleans Saints. Dad, who wins it?
Saints are going to get it to Stafford. It's going to be the Saints. I think they're going to take it. Olave's going to have a good game here. It's going to be the Saints on this one.
Oh, man, this is a tough one to pick. I'm going to go with the Rams. I want to pick the Saints, but we're still not sure what they're going to do at quarterback, and we'll probably get into that when we talk about the NFC South. Give me the Rams in this one. I'm not proud of picking them because if Rattler's playing at that point, I think I might pick the Saints. But if we're talking Derek Carr, give me the Rams.
All right, I'm going to go with the Rams as well. Unfortunately, Dad, your Saints, it seems that they're your team right now. But anyway, we have the Rams winning that. Then the Rams get to host the Bills, and we have the Rams winning that game before going on the road and losing to the Niners and then the Jets. So they have 2 games to end this season. We actually have them. They've won all the games that we hadn't covered before this so far. They have to win these 2 games to tie the Niners. They would actually win the division with these 2 victories. But do they win? Do they win against the Cardinals at home, Dad?
Yes, they're going to win the game at home, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, looking at this now, we probably should have rethought that Niners decision because they're gonna lose the division. We thought they wouldn't have to try for that last game, but now looking at it, they definitely would be in the mind to try. But we already made the prediction. So then we come to their last game. They host the Seahawks. Winner wins the division. I'm assuming we have Rams across the board in that game at home.
Yeah.
All right, and in a turn of tides, we have the Rams winning that division at 12-5. So they still have the same record, but division record rules, and the Rams get the upper hand on that one. And so we'll dive into the Cardinals here, where we have them losing to the Bills in Week 1, pulling off a big victory against the Rams in Week 2. They stay at home in their second home game out of 3, but they lose to the Lions. 2 tough games. But then they have the Commanders at home. They win that one. Then they go on the road and play the Niners. That's a tough game. They lose it. Same with the Packers. They lose it. But they host the Chargers in Week 7. They get a victory there. That'll be a fun game to watch. Same with the next week. They go into Miami. We have Miami winning that game, but I'm assuming that game will be a high-scoring an exciting one. And then we have Kyler hosting the Bears, as my dad shows Dwayne Sports shirt. If you want merch, let us know. We can work that out possibly, as Dwayne Sports is growing, everybody. But anyway, back to we had the Cardinals beating the Bears is like a long, oh my gosh. Okay, then they're beating the Bears. We actually have the Cardinals upsetting the Jets at home. Then they go into their bye week, and they come out of it in week 12 to face the Seahawks on the road. Genoa, who wins that game?
Man, I'm gonna give it to the Cardinals. They're hot. At this point of the year, I've said that they have a good back half of the season. Marvin's rolling, Kyler's rolling. They got some new players juiced up in Arizona. Give me the Cardinals in this one.
I'm going with Seattle. I think Seattle's going to pull this one off. It's going to be a close game on this one, but I think DK Metcalf, I think Kenneth Walker is going to do something. It's going to be Seattle going to take this one.
I'm going to go with Seattle as well. So we'll have Seattle getting that victory. That'll be a close and fun game, I think. I think both teams are going to be really interesting this year. And then we have the Cardinals. They stay on the road, and they face the Vikings. They lose it just to jump back and face the Seahawks, but this time at home. Dad, is this a game the Cardinals will win?
Yeah, this is a game Cardinals will win. I think Geno still will have a good game, but the Cardinals will win this one.
I have the Cardinals sweeping the Seahawks. I mentioned I think they get hot sort of the back half of the season. I think they knock them out twice.
All right. And to continue on that, the Cardinals get their third straight win facing off against the Patriots. Then in Week 16, they go into Carolina. This is a super interesting matchup, Genoa. Who wins it?
This one's a tough one, man. I'm gonna say let me give it to the Panthers. I've been consistent saying that like Bryce Young is gonna be on and off. I think this is the one that he's home. I think Kyler does have a good game, but he kind of struggles in the game-winning drive to kind of beat the Panthers. So give me the Panthers in this one.
No, I'm going with the Cardinals. Once again, I think the Cardinals still have a couple of years before they start, winning some more games. It's going to be the Cardinals on this one.
All right, I have the Panthers getting a victory finally at home. They beat the Cardinals. But that game's another good game. I feel like Cardinals are having some good games. But then the Cardinals, they stay on the road. They go into Los Angeles. They lose that game before hosting the Niners and somehow pulling that victory out and stealing the I guess the Niners will be really upset losing this game to the Cardinals because they don't get to win the division if they lose this game, and we have them losing to Arizona, which ends the Cardinals season at 8-9. Probably missing a playoffs, but not a bad season by how their last season ended. So they end 8-9. And then their last team in the division, the Seahawks, only a couple games to really jump into. We had the Seahawks hosting the Broncos and beating them down. So Seahawks get that victory. They lose though in a shocker to Drake May and the Patriots. They also lose to the Dolphins, so they start out 1-2. And then they go 1-3, losing to Detroit before hosting the Giants, which we don't have a lot of high hopes for New York. So we have Seattle pulling out that game. But then we have the Niners. Even though they're on the road, they get to beat Seattle before Week 7, where Seattle goes into Atlanta. Dad, who's winning that game?
It's going to be Atlanta. Atlanta's going to tear it up with a lot of offense. I'm telling you, they're not going to – they won't hit double digits. So it's going to be Atlanta Falcons taking this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Geno's going to struggle just a little bit, and I think that Atlanta and Bijan's going to run wild.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Atlanta's kind of got too much for Seattle, for what Seattle can bring to the table. Okay, so we have Seattle losing that game, but then they come back and they have a home game against Buffalo where they win, which they beat Josh Allen. That'd be a really nice game. And then they stay at home, but they lose to the Rams. So I guess they put all their energy into beating Buffalo just to lose to the Rams the next week at home, even though both teams are pretty good. Then they head into their bye week, and they have a road game against San Francisco. They lose that, so they lose both games to San Francisco this year. But they get a victory over Arizona at home. Just to the next week, they can lose to the Jets, and then they have I guess the Cardinals get their revenge on Seattle and win their game at home. And then we move into Week 15, where Seattle gets to play the Packers. They pull out a tough home victory. A lot of animosity between those two teams over the last handful of years, but Seattle gets the victory. Same with against the Minnesota Vikings. They get a home victory there before losing to Chicago and the Rams on the road, which makes their season end at 6-11. And so not a great season, but it's also the first year of Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb. But I think this kind of will be the curtain call on Geno Smith as a starter for the Seahawks. I would argue there's a small chance that Sam Howell starts some games for Seattle this year if they're looking pretty bad, because they did make a trade for him. So that would be kind of interesting. Sam Howell didn't do too bad last year with Washington, but yeah. So looking at the NFC West, we have the Rams winning the division at 12-5. The Niners also are 12-5 to end their season, and then we also have the Cardinals going at 8-9, and Seattle's at 6-11. Both teams will miss the playoffs there, but that is the NFC West. We only have one more division before we end these full record predictions. And so thank you guys for listening. Genoa, Pops, thank you for working here today.
Thank you.
We got one more. We got one more, so we will finish that up real quick. But thank you guys for listening, and